Oh, hello everybody, and pardon me for welcoming you back to the wrong show. This is the 48 Laws of Power, a book by Robert Greene, and this is the discussion series of that. There we go. We are indeed involved in the 48 Laws of Power. Tonight, my lovelies, we are reading, and I quote, the longest of chapters yet. Without further ado, Shilomania. It is time. It was almost not time, because I almost fell asleep. Bijou, this guy, first shot. So yeah, tonight we have the longest law yet. And I only know this because I went and found a breakdown of every single chapter in the audiobook. And this one. This is the longest one yet. Which means, having me read it, it should take all kinds of forever. Ugh. So I hope everybody brought a snack, maybe a pillow. Maybe everybody just take this stream with them to bed tonight. Law 26. Keep your hands clean. Judgment. You must seem a paragon of civility and efficiency. Your hands are never soiled by mistakes and nasty deeds. Maintain such a spotless appearance by using others as scapegoats and cat's paws to disguise your involvement. Oh, fucking K. Maddie, Oh, good afternoon, my friend. Good evening, as it would be. It's been a long day. It's about to be a much longer night. What the judgment tell you to do? Use others to do the dirty work and the unpleasant things for you. I don't know who baited Shalomania and Maddie to come in here, but I didn't do that for me. I allegedly. Allegedly. After 6's evening, I'm pretty sure. I mean, depending on where you are. But welcome. And welcome to the party. It may be after 6. Who knows? It is after 8 here. Part 1. Conceal your mistakes. Have a scapegoat around to take the blame. Our good name and reputation depends more on what we conceal than on what we reveal. Everyone makes mistakes, but those who are truly clever manage to hide them and to make sure someone else is blamed. A convenient scapegoat should always be kept around for such moments. Now, I know this is the longest, so I'm not going to even try to read this, whatever this typo shit show of a festival is here, in the treasury of Jewish folklore. I'm just going to get into observance of the law 1. Near the end of the 2nd century AD, as China's mighty Han Empire slowly collapsed, the great general and imperial minister Cao Cao emerged as the most powerful man in the country. Seeking to extend his power base and to rid himself of the last of his rivals, Cao began a campaign to take control of the strategically vital Central Plain. During the siege of a key city, he slightly miscalculated the timing for supplies of grain to arrive from the capital. As he waited for the shipment to come in, the army ran low on food. Cao was forced to order the chief of the uh, commissariat to tighten its rations. Zhao kept a tight rein on the army and ran a network of informers. His spies soon reported that the men were complaining, grumbling that he was living well while they themselves had barely enough to eat. Perhaps Zhao was keeping the food for himself, they murmured. If the grumbling spread, Zhao could have a mutiny on his hands. He summoned the chief of the commissariat to his tent. I want to ask you to lend me something, and you must not refuse, Zhao told the chief. "What is it?" the chief replied. "I want the loan of your head to show the troops," said Cao. "But I've done nothing wrong," cried the chief. "I know," said Cao with a sigh. "But if I do not put you to death, there will be a mutiny. Do not grieve. After you're gone, I'll look after your family." Put this way, the request left the chief no choice, so he resigned himself to his fate and was beheaded that very day. Seeing his head on public display, the soldiers stopped grumbling. Some saw through Cao's gesture, but kept quiet, stunned and intimidated by his violence, and most accepted his version of who was to blame, preferring to believe in his wisdom and fairness than in his incompetence and cruelty. Hmm. Well, that was a lot. Hello, Mr. Bob. It's good to see you out and about. Hope you're flying and flapping freely. Okay, so what do we learn about Sal? He knew how to take a thing that was an obvious problem, the delay of the grain shipment, and blame someone else when everyone got all pissed off about it, rather than have a mutiny on his hands. He had to execute a chief of a commissariat. Uh, Seems like it sucks, but at the same time, like, sometimes you just like you got to get rid of a lackey. It sucks because I read this and some of this shit hits really close to home with me. I may get into that as we go on further in the exact fucking issue that I have with this. It was like that when I got here. By Simpson. There you go, Squabobble. You understand how scapegoating works. But wait till you figure out just exactly how much this story trends in directions that we may be familiar with. Should be a good time. Hope everybody's ready for it. Speaking of ready for it, I don't even think I have a bowl pack. Oh, I do. Oh, hello. There we go. Easy peasy enough. We are still missing a couple of people from the chat. It's kind of, yeah, it's about that time. Hey, Suze. Welcome. Good evening to you. It was all Hunter Biden's horse fault. Cheers, y'all. Now that we've got that dealt with, it is absolutely still the longest law of the night tonight. So, and the longest law of the book so far tonight. So, I'm going to get back into it, and I'm going to periodically be in and out. Uh, so I'm just gonna say hello. It is good to see you, and I'm going to get back to this first interpretation. Zhao came to power in an extremely tumultuous time. In the struggle for supremacy in the crumbling Han Empire, enemies had emerged from all sides. The battle for the Central Plain had proven more difficult than he had imagined, and money and provisions were a constant concern. No wonder that under such stress, he had forgotten to order supplies in time. Once it became clear that the delay was a critical mistake and that the army was seething with mutiny, Zhao had two options: apology and excuses, or a scapegoat. Understanding the workings of power and the importance of appearance as he did, Zhao did not hesitate for a moment. He shopped around for the most convenient head and had it served up immediately. Occasional mistakes are inevitable. The world is just too unpredictable. People of power, however, are undone not by the mistakes they make, but by the way they deal with them. Like surgeons, they must cut away the tumor with speed and finality. Excuses and apologies are much too blunt tools for this delicate operation. The powerful avoid them. By apologizing, you open up all sorts of doubts about your competence, your intentions, any other mistakes you may not have confessed. Excuses satisfy no one, and apologies make everyone uncomfortable. The mistake does not vanish with an apology, it deepens and festers. Better to cut it off instantly. Distract attention from yourself and focus attention on a convenient scapegoat before people have time to ponder your responsibility or your possible incompetence. I would rather betray the whole world than let the world betray me. General Tsao, 2nd century AD. Hello, Grace. Good to see you. Yeah. Welcome. Yes. Uh, Grace Case Straight No Chaser. That's 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 pressing. But anyway, we made it, and that is exactly what Sao said in that quote. Well, I would rather betray the whole world than have the world betray me. That's what he did with his chief commissariat. Yeah, I mean, that's why you'll find a lot of people in positions of power in things like business and in government. You'll find a lot of people like throwing people under the bus and certain people taking the fall for shit. I don't want to point any names out, but roses are red, the elf on the shelf, Mr. Epstein, no commit self die. No, he didn't kill himself. And if you want to talk about scapegoats and you want to talk about people being used like to deflect liability, I don't think I can think of a more blatant, patently obvious case than Jeff Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And if you ever think we're going to see that client list, I'm sorry, I was watching Div's stream earlier. For those of you who don't know Divinity, go check her out. They were talking about the pending lawsuits for the president's son, and it's like, oh well, most of the serious shit here's federal, and this is the president's son. This state shit is kind of nonsense. They think they're gonna lock him up, and I think there's no fucking chance in hell. But we'll see. Like, maybe he gets scapegoated, but I doubt it. Unless the entire Biden family gets scapegoated, nothing will happen to Mr. Hunter. That's my opinion. Anywho, moving right along. Observance of the law 2. For years, Caesar Borgia campaigned to gain control of large parts of Italy in the name of his father, Pope Alexander. In the year 1500, he managed to take Romania in northern Italy. The region had for years been ruled by a series of greedy masters who had plundered its wealth for themselves. Without police or any disciplining force, it had descended into lawlessness, whole areas being ruled by robbers and feuding families. To establish order, Caesar appointed a lieutenant general of the region, Ramiro de Orco, a cruel and vigorous man. According to Niccolo Machiavelli, Caesar gave de Orco absolute powers. Oh boy. Well, that can't possibly go poorly. Oh, Dusty Castro? What up, Castro? Glad you couldn't make it, my dude. We had a long discussion tonight. I hope you brought snacks. Mostly because we could be here for a while. With energy and violence, Dorico established a severe, brutal justice in Romania and soon rid it of almost all of its lawless elements. But in his zeal, he sometimes went too far, and after a couple of years, the local population resented and even hated him. In December of 1502, Caesar took decisive action. He first let it be known that he had not approved of Dorico's cruel and violent deeds, which stemmed from the lieutenant's brutal nature. Then, on December 22, he imprisoned Dorico in the town of Cesena, and the day after Christmas, the townspeople awoke to find a strange spectacle in the middle of the piazza. Dorico's headless body, dressed in a lavish suit with a purple cape, the head impaled beside it on a pike, the bloody knife and executioner's block laid out beside the head. As Machiavelli concluded his comments on the affair, the ferocity of the scene left the people at once stunned and satisfied. Oh, hi, Claire. Good to see you. Welcome to. I read Orca in the text as Oreo. It's funny because Grace brought Oreos, and I know the lovely inside joke that apples and peanut butter. Shalomania came prepared. She brought a fillet. Uh, bubbly fucking fizzy water. Get the fuck out of here, Bijou. Uh, but this is good. I'm glad you're here, Claire. This one's long, and I need everybody here to make sure that I stay awake through all of it. If we were following along in the audiobook, I would be exactly 1/10 of the way in right now. So, Deorco, Caesar Borgia's man. He was put in charge. He did all types of fucked up shit. I think Mr. Borgia knew he was the right guy to do this kind of fucked up shit, but once the people started getting really mad about the fucked up shit he was doing, Borgia was like, no, I don't condone any of this. I'm gonna get rid of this guy, and I'm gonna make a huge show of it so it makes everybody appear like I didn't condone all the shit he was doing. Y'all are gonna wake up to him dead on Christmas morning. That's a huge fucking spectacle. Body all beheaded and head all on a pike. That's a lot. Interpretation. Caesar Borgia was a master player in the game of power. Always planning several moves ahead, he set his opponents the cleverest traps. For this, Machiavelli honored him above all others in The Prince. And for the record, y'all, I plan on covering The Prince. That was actually the next thing I wanted to do on the channel after we finish the 48 Laws. I know it seems like they are just never going to come to an end, but I promise you, we are on 26 right now. So we're getting close to the end. They do get longer, I've noticed. They trend longer on the second half of the book than they do in the first half. Most of them, like the text is around a half hour in audiobook format. This one's almost an hour. And a lot of them do tread 40, 45, 50, 55 an hour long going forward. So, but after that, The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli, something I definitely want to talk about, and I want to bring someone along with me. I don't want to tell y'all who I would like to bring along with me just yet until I can get that person uh, on board with the cause. Fizzy water is never the fucking answer. No, no, no. I have fizzy water questions that will. There are no fizzy water questions or answers. Fizzy water is like Latin for, and we're not doing it. We're not doing it. So yeah. Anyway, we do have some good, nice, nice campfire style long laws coming up, and maybe for a couple of the ones coming up, I can maybe get some help for those too. But when I do the prints, I definitely want to bring someone along, and I will let y'all know if I can get that person to agree to do it with me. If not, as we do, we will do it. Me in the chat. I have learned to get others to do the work while I take the credit, and I'll also learn to depend on no one and trust no one and allow my power to emanate from who I am. So, uh, Caesar foresaw the future with amazing clarity in Romania. Romania? Romania. Only brutal justice would bring order to the region, so he knew he needed an iron fist type of guy. The process would take several years, and at first the people would welcome it, but it would soon make many enemies, and the citizens would come to resent the imposition of such unforgiving justice, especially by outsiders. Caesar himself, then, could not be seen as the agent of this justice. This is why he went and found a sociopath to serve his interests, y'all. The people's hatred would cause too many problems in the future. And so he chose the one man who could do the dirty work, knowing in advance that once the task was done, he would have to display De Orco's head on a pike. The scapegoat in this case had been planned from the beginning. With Saal, the scapegoat was an entirely innocent man. In the Romagna, He was the offensive weapon in Caesar's arsenal that let him get the dirty work done without bloodying his own hands. With this second kind of scapegoat, it is wise to separate yourself from the hatchet man at some point, either leaving him dangling in the wind or, like Caesar, even making yourself the one to bring him to justice. Not only are you free of involvement in the problem, you can appear as the one who cleans it up. Ah, where have we heard this mentality before? Who creates a problem and then presents themselves as the only obvious solution to the problem they created? Stop me if you've heard this one before, because it's almost like this is how it always goes with these people. What do you mean, these people? I mean, people with authority. Marty McFly came back from the future to introduce an earlier generation to Chuck Berry. God, you would have hoped he had a better purpose than that, but it turns out he actually didn't. I accidentally gave Uwu a positive command. I need a scapegoat, and there isn't one around. You're gonna have to eat it. He's answered the question before I asked it. You, you're gonna have to eat it. Ah, ah. The Athenians regularly maintained a number of degraded and useless beings at the public expense, and when any calamity, such as plague, drought, or famine, befell the city, these scapegoats were led about and then sacrificed, apparently by being stoned outside the city. I just want to let y'all know because y'all are my homies. If you ever need to sacrifice me, just bring me outside the city and get me really stoned first. I want to go out like these guys. So if I ever got to get scapegoated again, do it like this, please. The Golden Bough, Sir James George Fraser. Keys to power. The use of scapegoats is as old as civilization itself. So for a long, 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 long time, people have been blaming their shit on other people. Convenient people, obvious people. This has not this is not a new school of thought. This, like everything in this book, this is as old as human interactions. Examples of it can be found in cultures around the world. The main idea behind these sacrifices is the shifting of guilt and sin to an outside figure, object, animal, or man, which is then banished or destroyed. The Hebrews used to take a live goat, hence the term scapegoat, upon whose head the priest would lay both hands while confessing the sins of the children of Israel. Charlemagne, did your people invent scapegoating? Because it sounds kind of like they're the ones who were entirely responsible for. You can't mute Darth? Why would you want to? No, but did your people invent scapegoating? That's what they're telling me here. That they would actually take a live goat, hence the term scapegoat. and use it as a sacrifice. Having thus had those sins transferred to it, the beast would be led away and abandoned in the wilderness, probably to get high or stoned outside the city, rather. Stoned outside the city. With the Athenians and the Aztecs, the scapegoat was human, often a person fed and raised for the purpose. Since famine and plague were thought to be visited on humans by the gods in punishment for wrongdoing, the, peop- the people suffered not only from the famine and plague themselves, but from blame and guilt. They freed themselves of guilt by transferring it to an innocent person whose death was intended to satisfy the divine powers and banish the evil from their midst. So, either one of two things: the gods were inordinately and abhorrently cruel, or people, the people, were inordinately, inherently cruel and stupid. Mostly stupid, but often cruel. Anyway, I think there's a case to be made for both things, but famines and droughts still happen, and I don't know if anybody's still sacrificing people to the gods anymore. I'm hoping that tradition is passed, but I don't live in places where these type of traditions took place. The original ram in the thicket. It is an extremely human response to not look inward after a mistake or a crime, or at all, ever actually, but rather to look outward and to affix blame and guilt on a convenient object. Very easy for people to blame something else rather than take responsibility. We see this shit all the time, all over the place. There are so many countless examples. Yes, it is still happening. There are so many countless examples of people who are easily blaming something on the outside. When the plague was ravaging Thebes, Oedipus looked everywhere for its cause. Everywhere except inside himself and his own sin of incest, which had so offended the gods and occasioned the plague. This profound need to exercise one's guilt to project it on another person or object has an immense power, which the clever know how to harness. Sacrifice is a ritual, perhaps the most ancient ritual of all. Ritual, too, is a wellspring of power. In the killing of De Orco, note Caesar's symbolic and ritualistic display of his body. By framing it in this dramatic way, he focused guilt outward. The citizens of Romagna responded instantly, because it comes so naturally to us to look outward rather than inward. We readily accept the scapegoat's guilt. And how many times has everyone here had a situation that came up where it was just so much easier to blame something or someone rather than be like, okay, I fucked that up. That was my B. Because I find myself plagued oftentimes in actually trying to understand when I fucked something up myself and when I'm blaming something. And I've also been the scapegoat in situations where someone else fucked up and then I got to bear the brunt of the blame because I got scapegoated and didn't realize how I put myself in the position to be abused in that manner. Welcome back, Small Mousin. No worries. You're in luck. We are still here. Pretty sure they'd be sacrificing people to the gods in a place I'm not finna mention right now. I always try to self-examine and repair. It's been taken advantage of. It. Even your ability to be introspective can be scapegoated. It's kind of crazy how this works and how easily people will latch on to something being scapegoated and blamed without actually looking into it. I may tell a fucking story tonight. I'm not quite sure if I have to. Some of you already know the story I may tell tonight. Those of you who are closest to me may have a fucking clue where this is going. Scapegoating and being sacrificed to the public for the common good. There may be a few people here who know exactly what the fuck I might be about to say. The bloody sacrifice of the scapegoat seems a barbaric relic of the past, but the practice lives on to this day. As we just fucking said, everybody who noticed that scapegoating still exists to this day, give yourselves a fucking round of applause for nailing that one. Because we knew this. You can see this shit going on all around you, like all the fucking time. If indirectly and symbolically, since power depends on appearances, and those in power must seem never to make mistakes, the use of scapegoats is popular as ever. What modern leader will take responsibility for his blunders? He searches out others to blame, a scapegoat to sacrifice. When Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution failed miserably, he made no apologies or excuses to the Chinese people. Instead, like Cao Cao before him, he offered up scapegoats, including his own personal secretary and high-ranking member of the party, Chinpota. Franklin Delano Roosevelt had a reputation for honesty and fairness. Oh my God. Can y'all believe this shit? FDR, while he was alive, had a reputation for honesty and fairness. This fucking scumbag. I swear to God, if y'all don't know, like, my history with my most five hated presidents, everyone says Joe Biden's the worst president in American history. They don't know the story of Woodrow Wilson, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and Lyndon B. Johnson. Fuck these pieces of trash. I hope they burn in hell. But he had a reputation for honesty and fairness. Throughout his career, however, he faced many situations in which being the nice guy would have spelled political disaster. Yet he could not be seen as the agent of any foul play. For 20 years, then, his secretary, Lewis Howe, played the role of Deorko had. He had handled the backroom deals, the manipulation of the press, the underhanded campaign maneuvers, and whenever a mistake was committed or a dirty trick contradicting Roosevelt's carefully crafted image became public, Howe served as the scapegoat and never complained. Fuck you. I ain't doing that shit. I don't work for you no more. Besides conveniently shifting blame, a scapegoat can serve as a warning to others. In 1631, a plot was hatched to oust France's Cardinal Richelieu from power, a plot that became known as the Day of the Dupes. It almost succeeded, since it involved the upper echelons of government, including the Queen Mother, but through luck and his own connivances, Richelieu survived. One of the key conspirators was a man named Merlac, the keeper of the seals. Richelieu could not imprison him without implicating the Queen Mother, an extremely dangerous tactic. So he targeted Merilac's brother, a marshal in the army. This man had no involvement in the plot. Richelieu, however, afraid that other conspiracies might be in the air, especially in the army, decided to set an example. He tried the brother on trumped up charges, mind you, and had him executed. In this way, he indirectly punished the real perpetrator, who had thought himself protected, and warned any future conspirators that he would not shrink from sacrificing the innocent to protect his own power. So, that's critical right there. Like, that's like the mafia coming and they're gonna off your sister to to send you a message. Make sure you make sure you don't do this thing again because we can't really afford to sack you. But just know we're more than willing to hurt those closest to you. Unbelievable, y'all. In fact, it is often wise to choose the most innocent victim possible as a sacrificial goat. Such people will not be powerful enough to fight you, and their naive protests may be seen as protesting too much. May be seen, in other words, as a sign of their guilt. Be careful, however, not to create a martyr. It is important that you remain the victim, the poor leader betrayed by the incompetence of those around you. If the scapegoat appears too weak and his punishment too cruel, you may end up the victim of your own device. Sometimes you should find a more powerful scapegoat, one who will elicit less sympathy in the long run. And this right here. If anybody's been following the drama that I've been fucking surrounded with for the last, I don't know, 5 months or so, the shit that I was scapegoated in, it was perfect because I was the asshole that it was really easy to blame everything on because everybody knew I was a fucking asshole. Whether I did any of that shit was irrelevant, but a lot of shit was foisted upon me. Some of it I did, some of it I didn't do, most of it I didn't do, but it didn't matter. But because I was guilty of some things, it made it really easy to make me guilty of everything. And I, being the sucker that I was, not seeing the writing on the wall for what it was, I fell right into the trap of it, and you didn't even know it was going. I mean, I knew to an extent that there was things there. I knew there were issues, and it became really easy to blame them on me. And I was fully aware, and never did actually support any of that shit. But irrelevant. I was blamed, and I was burned. And then several months later, it did end up coming out that, oh yeah, all that shit. Ugh. Guilty of many things is me, but all of that shit only in such a limited capacity. Uh, in this vein, history has time and again shown the value of using a close associate as a scapegoat. This is known as the fall of the favorite. Most kings had a personal favorite at court, a man whom they singled out, sometimes for no apparent reason, and lavished with favors and attention. But this court favorite could serve as a convenient scapegoat in case of a threat to the king's reputation. The public would readily believe in the scapegoat's guilt. Why would the king sacrifice his favorite? Unless he were guilty. And the other courtiers, resentful of the favorite anyway, would rejoice at his downfall. The king, meanwhile, would rid himself of a man who by that time had probably learned too much about him, perhaps becoming arrogant and even disdainful of him. Choosing a close associate as a scapegoat has the same value as the fall of the favorite. You may lose a friend or aide, but in the long term scheme of things, it is more important to hide your mistakes than to hold on to someone who will one day probably turn against you. Besides, you can always find a new favorite to take his place, right? Lots of blaming. Usually points back at the blamer, even while blaming the blamer. I mean, cowardly blaming others or not acknowledging them when you blame them. uh, like I said, this is kind of a little bit of an inside story. If you know, you know. But this is how it goes, and you see this so many times because it's so much easier to blame someone else. And how many of you have actually seen a scenario like this happen where people who fuck over someone close to them or people in a situation will throw someone close to them under the bus to maintain their own reputation. I've seen it so often. People think it's happening right now with this whole like the prosecution of the president's son by the president's justice system. This is not scapegoating. This is the appearance of scapegoating, but I digress. Image: the innocent goat. On the Day of Atonement, the high priest brings the goat into the temple, places his hands on its head, and confesses the people's sins, transferring guilt to the guiltless beast. which is then led to the wilderness and abandoned, the people's sins and blame vanishing with him. Authority. Folly consists not in committing folly, but in being incapable of concealing it. All men make mistakes, but the wise conceal the blunders they have made, while fools make them public. Reputation depends more on what is hidden than what is seen. If you can't be good, be careful. Balthazar Gracian. Again, that's funny because that is exactly how I handled it. I took the scapegoating and basically told everybody to fuck off. And I thought that was the best for everyone involved in the scenario because there wasn't any route to talk myself out of the shit that happened. Everyone was very convinced of my guilt. So it was pretty easy to just be like, okay, yeah, fuck out of here. That's what I'm saying. So if you can't be good, be careful. Part two. Everybody ready for part two? Do we need to take a break, stretch, maybe get a drink, maybe use the restroom? I'm gonna go ahead and take a 2 minute respite to just hang out with chat for a second before we get into part two. Yep, go ahead, Claire. Um, you left for a while and then you came back. Oh, you've been resurrected. I'm assuming Squabob is talking to Mousy and not me because you would have to kill me to bring me back to resurrect me. But yo, you'd have to catch me first. So does anybody here particularly know what a cat's paw is? You know, like what the reference means? Can anybody, without reading the damn interpretation, can you explain to me the concept of a cat's paw? I'm just curious. Because I had heard the term before, but I had thought more like the concept of a monkey's paw, which is a different concept entirely than a cat's paw. You know, there's a cat in the table, in the cradle with a silver spoon. The little blue boy blew the man in the moon because he needed the money. What did you do to Cat Ninja? I didn't do anything to Cat Ninja's paws. I would not use Cat Ninja's paws in this regard. You glow like a neon fed. Something that covers your tracks. I am guessing that it means wiping away your tracks or to tread so lightly you don't leave track. You know, that's a good guess, Bijou. It is not actually correct in this regard, but it's a good guess. Uh, okay, we've we've had a couple of minutes. We've relaxed. Claire's still probably gone, but we must press on, and press on we shall. and we shall press on by the introduction to making use of the cat's paw. In the fable, the monkey grabs the paw of his friend, the cat, and uses it to fish chestnuts out of the fire, thus getting the nuts he craves without hurting himself. If there is something unpleasant or unpopular that needs to be done, it is far too risky for you to do the work yourself. You need a cat's paw, someone who does the dirty, dangerous work for you. The cat's paw grabs what you need, hurts whom you need hurt, and keeps people from noticing that you are the one responsible. Let someone else be the executioner or the bearer of bad news, while you bring only joy and glad tidings. So basically, this is your enforcer or your lackey or your flunky. For every president of the United States, there is an FBI to be their cat's paw. At least that's how it sits right now. Welcome back, Claire. We were just getting back to the concept of what a cat's paw is, and it's basically hired goon. Or, yeah, a gentleman, a garbage. He's in waste management. I gotta go talk to my buddy in waste management. You get the idea, squab. Uh, I have assassin snails for that. There you go. I I don't do these type of things. I got people for that. The monkey and the cat. Oh, we're not reading this whole thing. Absolutely not. Mostly because I can see the amount of typographical error in the punch-in once again. But that's fine because we're going to get really familiar with the idea of cat's pawing really quickly. In 59 BC, the future Queen Cleopatra of Egypt, then 10 years old, witnessed the overthrow and banishment of her father, Ptolemy the 12th, at the hand of his eldest daughters, her own sisters. One of the daughters, Berenice, emerged as the leader of the rebellion, and to ensure that she would now rule Egypt alone, she imprisoned her other sisters and murdered her own husband. Man, I swear to God, Robert Greene does not make it easy to read this book, knowing what the gamer words are on YouTube. Lucky for me, these things happened long before any of us was born, and this is this is not news. This is ancient fucking history. This may have been necessary as a practical step to secure her rule. Oh, well, that's pragmatic. But that a member of the royal family, a queen no less, would so overtly exact such violence on her own family horrified her subjects and stirred up powerful opposition, as well it should. I mean, if we saw something like this in modern day, would that not be some extremely disturbing shit? I know we don't have royalty and shit anymore because we're not stupid like the British kids. At least I hope we're not. Some of us are British kids, and I don't mean any offense to y'all. I know y'all don't actually have a real king. I know he's just some jackass. Like our president's not a real president. He's just some jackass. But my oh my, I would be very disturbed and perturbed if, for some fucking reason, the people in charge just started killing each other from inside out. Actually, as it stands right now, maybe less so. But I still wouldn't trust somebody who was like had a penchant for that level of violence. If you have that type of violence in your nature and in your capacity, I'm gonna steer far fucking clear of you, and I'm gonna try to be rid of you as quickly as possible. 4 years later, this opposition was able to return Ptolemy to power, and he promptly had Berenice and the other elder sisters beheaded. Good. In 51 BC, Ptolemy died, leaving four remaining children as heirs. As was the tradition in Egypt, the eldest son, Ptolemy the 13th, only 10 at the time, married the elder sister, Cleopatra, now 18. Okay, this is becoming very incestuous very quickly. And the couple took the throne together as king and queen. None of the four children felt satisfied with this. Everyone, including Cleopatra, wanted more power. A struggle emerged between Cleopatra and Ptolemy, each trying to push the other to the side. Oh boy. I mean, you love my commentary because I'm going to say the shit. Like, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Fucking God, people never learn that a family tree is supposed to have branches. The branches are not supposed to root back to the trunk. Like, that's a family pole, and that doesn't get you anywhere in the history of the world. In 48 BC, with the help of a government faction that feared Cleopatra's ambitions, Ptolemy was able to force his sister to flee the country, leaving himself as sole ruler. In exile, Cleopatra schemed. She wanted to rule alone and to restore Egypt to its past glory, a goal she felt none of her other siblings could achieve. So this bitch is not only violent but arrogant. Oh wait, this isn't the violent one yet, but she was definitely very arrogant. As long as they were alive, she could not realize her dream. And the example of Berenice had made it clear that no one would serve a queen who was seen murdering her own kind. As well, they shouldn't. Even Ptolemy the 13th had not dared murder Cleopatra, although he knew she would plot against him from abroad, and abroad she was. Within a year after Cleopatra's banishment, the Roman dictator Julius Caesar arrived in Egypt, determined to make the country a Roman colony. Stop me if you've heard this story before. Cleopatra saw her chance. Re entering Egypt in disguise, She traveled hundreds of miles to reach Caesar in Alexandria. Legend has it that she had herself smuggled into his presence, rolled up inside a carpet, which was gracefully unfurled at his feet, revealing the young queen. Cleopatra immediately went to work on the Roman. She appealed to his love of spectacle and his interest in Egyptian history and poured on her feminine charms. Caesar soon succumbed and restored Cleopatra to the throne. My oh my. Seduced. Cleopatra's siblings seethed. She had outmaneuvered them. Ptolemy the 13th would not wait to see what happened next. From his palace in Alexandria, he summoned a great army to march on the city and attack Caesar. In response, Caesar immediately put Ptolemy and the rest of the family under house arrest. But Cleopatra's younger sister, Arsenio, escaped from the palace and placed herself at the head of the approaching Egyptian troops, proclaiming herself Queen of Egypt. Now Cleopatra finally saw her chance. She convinced Caesar to release Ptolemy from house arrest under the agreement that he would broker a truce. Of course, she knew he would do the opposite, that he would fight Arsenio for control of the Egyptian army, but this was to Cleopatra's benefit, for it would divide the royal family. Better still, it would give Caesar the chance to defeat and kill her siblings in battle. Reinforced by troops from Rome, Caesar swiftly defeated the rebels, and in the Egyptians' retreat, Ptolemy drowned in the Nile. Caesar captured Arsenio and had her sent to Rome as a prisoner. He also executed the numerous enemies who had conspired against Cleopatra and imprisoned others who had opposed her. To reinforce her position as uncontested queen, Cleopatra now married the only sibling left, Ptolemy the 14th, only 11 at the time and the weakest of the lot. 4 years later, Ptolemy mysteriously died of poison. Oh my. I'm not saying this is a murderous rampage. This is kind of sounding a lot like a murderous rampage. Is anybody else getting like weirdly murderous rampagey kind of vibes here? Or has everybody been sufficiently grossed out by the level of violence that this story has taken? I'm sure thou must be with me still. It says I've got 7 people still here. If 3 of them are throwing up, that means 4 of them are still good. Darth, rest assured, Cleopatra is not all woman's. Um, the um, rampagey vibes indeed. Thank you, Bijou, for seeing what I see here. Uh, you say so, Schwab. If you say so. It does happen every day. That's the unfortunate part about shit like this. In 41 BC, Cleopatra employed on a second Roman leader, Mark Antony, the same tactics she had used so well on Julius Caesar. After seducing him, she hinted to him that her sister, Arsenio, still a prisoner in Rome, had conspired to destroy him. Mark Antony believed her and promptly had Arsenio executed, thereby getting rid of the last of the siblings who had posed a threat to Cleopatra. So Cleopatra had a significant talent for seduction and a very sharp mind with her position to use this on two of the most powerful leaders. I mean, at the time, the Roman Empire was uh, not quite in collapse. It was pretty close to the peak of its power. Julius Caesar, Mark Antony, both extremely powerful historically, both pawns of Cleopatra's in this game to destroy basically everyone in her family that opposed her. And she used them very, very effectively. It is not long after this that God had decided to send his Holy Son into the world, born of Mary. Squab, I'm glad you're free. Truly am. Interpretation. Legend has it that Cleopatra succeeded through her seductive charms, but in reality, her power came from an ability to get people to do her bidding without realizing they were being manipulated. Caesar and Antony not only rid her of her most dangerous siblings, Ptolemy the 13th and Arsenio, they decimated all of her enemies in both the government and the military. The two men became her cat's paws. They entered the fire for her, did the ugly but necessary work, while shielding her from appearing as the destroyer of her siblings and fellow Egyptians. And in the end, both men acquiesced to her desire to rule Egypt not as a Roman colony, but as an independent allied kingdom. And they did all this for her without realizing how she had manipulated them. This was persuasion of the subtlest and most powerful kind. A queen must never dirty her hands with ugly tasks, nor can a king appear in public with blood on his face. Yet power cannot survive without the constant squashing of enemies. There will always be dirty little tasks that have to be done to keep you on the throne. Like Cleopatra, you need a cat's paw. Or you just need to stay the fuck off the throne. There's that. I mean, who actually aspires to rule over people other than people who have a twisted fetish with being in other people's business? Uh, Power is kind of a rough topic to actually like come to terms with the nature of it. It's kind of gross. Very bloody, very merciless. All in all, it's the whole problem. This will usually be a person from outside your immediate circle, who will therefore be unlikely to realize how he or she is being used. You will find these dupes everywhere. People who enjoy doing you favors, especially if you throw them a minimal bone or two in exchange. But as they accomplish tasks that may seem to them innocent enough, or at least completely justified, they are actually clearing the field for you, spreading the information you feed them, undermining people they do not realize are your rivals, inadvertently furthering your cause, dirtying their hands while yours remain spotless. This is high key, very high end. Like, this is not the subtlest manipulation usually, but this is manipulation to severe consequences. And those people are out there. People who will do the favors for you. Observance of the law 2. In the late 1920s, civil war broke out in China as the nationalist and communist parties battled for control of the country. Fuck the commies. In 1927, Chiang Kai shek, the nationalist leader, vowed to kill every last communist. Okay, here. Can we all just take a moment to praise the mentality and the vision of Chiang Kai shek? Because he vowed in 1927, which is almost like we're almost approaching the 100-year anniversary of Chiang Kai shek's vow to kill all the communists, every single communist. I'm not saying we should kill all the communists. I'm just saying, like, if he had done that 100 years ago, maybe we wouldn't be in the position we're in right now. If he'd have just gone all across, swept the globe, and accomplished his mission, the world might be a better place today. Oh yeah, kill all the commies. And over the next few years, he nearly accomplished his task, pushing his enemies hard until, in 1934 to 35, he forced them into the Long March, a 6,000-mile retreat from the southeast to the remote northwest, through harsh terrain in which most of their ranks were decimated. In late 1936, Chiang planned one last offensive to wipe them out. But he was caught in a mutiny. His own soldiers captured him and turned him over to the communists. Goddamn traitors. Mr. Moxley gets to watch the city of East Point Georgia SWAT team serve a warrant in the morning. He promised me pics of a tank. Why do they need a tank? They don't need a tank to serve a warrant. East Point, dang, I really don't like this phone screen. Yeah, I mean, I can read typo. Don't worry, Mousy. Mousy, probably don't announce that in public until after. I mean, I have no idea how big East Point, Georgia is. I'm assuming it's it's large enough that there's more than one person that a warrant could be served on. So it's not like she's saying where they're going in East Point to go serve that. So it's probably fine. And the odds that the person they're serving the warrant on is one of the 6 people that watches my stream, or one of the like 15 people that are going to be in the replay crew tonight. I mean, if that's the case, then we're gonna scapegoat Mousy hardcore and blame everything on her for this. My hands are clean. I had nothing to do with it, Your Honor. In late 1936, Shang planned one last offensive to wipe them out. But he was caught in a mutiny. His own soldiers captured him and turned him over to the communists. Now he could only expect the worst. Meanwhile, however, the Japanese began an invasion of China, and much to Shang's surprise, instead of killing him, the communist leader Mao Zedong proposed a deal. The communists would let him go and would recognize him as commander of their forces as well as his if he would agree to fight alongside them against their common enemy. Shang had expected torture and execution. Hold on. No, don't. Wait, what is going on here? Yeah, torture and execution. Now he could not believe his luck. How soft these Reds had become. Without having to fight a rearguard action against the communists, he knew he could beat the Japanese. And then, a few years down the line, he would turn around and destroy the Reds with ease. He had nothing to lose and everything to gain by agreeing to their terms. Did he? The communists proceeded to fight the Japanese in their usual fashion, with hit and run guerrilla tactics, while the nationalists fought a more conventional war. Together, after several years, they succeeded in evicting the Japanese. Now, however, Shang finally understood what Mao had really planned. Can y'all guess where this is going to go next? This is. Uh, oh, they're here. That is the luck and chaos of the mouse, and it is why we love her. Also, the area in the point they are serving is like known for it. What I am wondering is why they always meet in the same parking lot. I would say meet at the Waffle House or not at the Waffle House. Meeting at the Waffle House. Meeting at the Waffle House. His own army had met the brunt of the Japanese artillery, was greatly weakened, and would take a few years to recover. The commies, meanwhile, had not only avoided any direct hits from the Japanese, they had used the time to recoup their strength and to spread out and gain pockets of influence all over China. As soon as the war against the Japanese ended, the Civil War started again. But this time the Communists enveloped the weakened nationalists and slowly beat them into submission. The Japanese had served as Mao's cat's paw, inadvertently plowing the fields for the Communists and making possible their victory over Chiang Kai shek. Because the Communists are lazy and didn't fight at all, they basically used the nationalists to fight the Japanese, and while both of them weakened each other, the lazy fucking useless commies, being what they are, didn't fight anybody until everybody was already basically beat up. And then they were like, oh yeah, we're just going to take your stuff now. Fucking commies. Interpretation. Most leaders who had taken as powerful an enemy as Chiang Kai shek prisoner would have made sure to kill him. But in doing so, they would have lost the chance Mao exploited. Without the experienced Chiang as leader of the nationalists, the fight to drive the Japanese out might have lasted much longer with devastating results. Mao was far too clever to let anger spoil the chance to kill two birds with one stone. In essence, Mao used two cat's paws to help him attain total victory. First, he cleverly baited Chiang into taking charge of the war against the Japanese. Mao knew the nationalists led by Chiang would do most of the hard fighting and would succeed in pushing the Japanese out of China if they did not have to concern themselves with fighting the communists at the same time. The nationalists, then, were the first cat's paw, used to evict the Japanese. But Mao also knew that in the process of leading the war against the invaders, the Japanese artillery and air support would decimate the conventional forces of the nationalists, doing damage it could take the communists decades to inflict. Why waste time and lives if the Japanese could do the job quickly? It was this wise policy of using one cat's paw against another that allowed the communists to prevail. The only way communists can win is by basically getting other people to do all the fucking work for them. Literally, the only way they can succeed. You literally have to get someone else to do it for you. This is the hecking commie. This is why when I am so disdainful of hecking commies, this is fucking why. They it would have taken them decades to inflict that kind of damage. They may not have ever managed to accomplish it. But they're lazy, so they didn't have to. They got someone else to do it for them. Fucking commies. Heck, right off, Cobby. There are two uses of the cat's paw: to save appearances, as Cleopatra did, and to save energy and effort. The latter case in particular demands that you plan several moves in advance, realizing that a temporary move backwards, letting Shang go, per se, can lead to a giant leap forward. If you are temporarily weakened and need time to recover, it will often serve you well to use those around you both as a screen to hide your intentions and as a cat's paw to do your work for you. Look for a powerful third party who shares an enemy with you, even if for different reasons. Then take advantage of their superior power to deal blows which would have cost you much more energy since you are weaker. You can even gently guide them into hostilities. Always search out the overly aggressive as potential cat's paws. They are often more than willing to get into a fight, and you can choose just the right fight for your purposes. My oh my. Observance of the Law 3. Kuriyama Daisen was an adept of Chao no Yu, hot water for tea, the Japanese tea ceremony, and a student of the teachings of the great tea master Sennorikyu. Around 1620, Daisen learned that a friend of his, Hoshino Soemon, had borrowed a large sum of money, 300 ryu, to help a relative who had fallen into debt. But although Soemon had managed to bail out his relative, he had simply displaced the burden onto himself. Daisen knew Soemon well. He neither cared nor understood much about money, and could easily get into trouble through slowness in repaying the loan, which had been made by a wealthy merchant called Kawachiya Sanemon. Yet if Daisen offered to help Soemon pay back the loan, he would refuse, out of pride, and might even be offended. One day Daisen visited his friend, and after touring the garden and looking at Soemon's prized peonies, they retired to his reception room. Here, Daisen saw a painting by the master Kano Tenyu. Ah, Daisen exclaimed, a splendid piece of painting. I don't know when I have seen anything I like better. After several more bouts of praise, Soemon had no choice. Well, he said, since you like it so much, I hope you will do me the favor of accepting it. Japanese people are weird. You mean to tell me if I go to Japan and I just admire Japanese people's stuff enough, they'll just give it to me? Is that what they're trying to tell me here? Because that's kind of sounding like what just happened. Like he just admired this painting so much that this other guy has no choice. He's in crippling debt, but I just gotta give this to you. At first, Daisen refused, but when Soemon insisted, he gave in. The next day, Soemon, in return, received a package from Daisen. Inside it, was a beautiful and delicate vase, which Dyson, in an accompanying note, asked his friend to accept as a token of his appreciation for the painting that Soemon had so graciously given him the day before. He explained that the vase had been made by Senno himself, the tea master from up here, Senno, and bore an inscription from Emperor Hideyoshi. If Soemon did not care for the vase, Daisen suggested he might make a gift of it to an adherent of Chao no Yu, perhaps the merchant Kawachiya Sanemon, who had often expressed a desire to possess it. I hear, Daisen continued, he has a fine piece of fancy paper, the 300 Rio IOU, which you would much like. It is possible you might arrange an exchange. Yes, this is the longest law yet. And when I first pulled it up in the audiobook and realized that the audiobook straight read through was 50 minutes long, I was like, okay, well, the last one I did that ended up being 2 hours was only 36 minutes long. This one's gonna take a fucking while. But lucky for us, it's a Monday night and I have nothing fucking better to do, so on we press, right? We will get through 26 tonight, I promise. It's still 2023, so long as I know. Realizing what his gracious friend was up to, Soemon took the vase to the wealthy lender. However did you get this? Exclaimed Sanemon when Soemon showed him the vase. I have often heard of it, but this is the first time I have ever seen it. It is such a treasure that it is never allowed outside the gate. He instantly offered to exchange the debt note for the flower vase and to give Soemon 300 Ryu more on top of it. But Soemon, who did not care for money, only wanted the debt note back, and Sanemon gladly gave it to him. Then Soemon immediately hurried to Daisen's house to thank him for his clever support. So, by guilting his homie into giving him that painting, he was in turn able to gift him a very special vase from the tea master that the guy who happened to hold his debt note coveted very, very greatly. Brilliantly played, I must say. Yeah, it sure is lucky that it's fucking Monday and it's not like Wednesday or nights when my friends stream or anything like that. Interpretation. Kuriyama Daisen understood that the granting of a favor is never simple. If it is done with fuss and obviousness, its receiver feels burdened by an obligation. This may give the doer a certain power, but it is a power that will eventually self-destruct, for it will stir up resentment and resistance. A favor done indirectly and elegantly has 10 times more power. Dyson knew a direct approach would only have offended Solomon. By letting his friend give him the painting, however, he made Solomon feel that he too had pleased his friend with a gift. In the end, all three parties emerged from the encounter feeling fulfilled in their own way. In essence, Dyson made himself the cat's paw, the tool to take the chestnuts out of the fire, but he must have felt some pain in losing the vase. But he gained not only the painting, but more important, the power of the courtier. The courtier uses his gloved hand to soften any blows against him, disguise his scars, and make the act of rescue more elegant and clean. By helping others, the courtier eventually helps himself. Dyson's example provides the paradigm for every favor done between friends and peers. Never impose your favors. Search out ways to make yourself the cat's paw, indirectly extricating your friends from distress without imposing yourself or making them feel obligated to you. One should not be too straightforward. Go and see the forest. The straight trees are cut down, the crooked ones are left standing. Kautilya. So yeah, we're about to get into it with the keys to power, but basically, Dyson managed to bail his friend out without making his friend feel like he owed him anything. Because he just gave him a gift. Because he had given him such a fine painting. He had got him to pay the debt in advance so that when he bailed him out of this problem, he saw nothing wrong with it. It was a beautiful play. That's a good friend right there. Supportive but non-obliging. Keys to power. As a leader, you may imagine that constant diligence and the appearance of working harder than anyone else signify power. Actually, though, they have the opposite effect. They imply weakness. Why are you working so hard? Perhaps you are incompetent and have to put in extra effort just to keep up. Perhaps you are one of those people who does not know how to delegate and has to meddle in everything. The truly powerful, on the other hand, never seem to be in a hurry or overburdened, while others work their fingers to the bone. They take their leisure. They know how to find the right people to put in the effort while they save their energy and keep their hands out of the fire. Similarly, you may believe that by taking on the dirty work yourself, involving yourself directly in unpleasant actions, you impose your power and instill fear. This is that mentality of If you want something done right, you gotta do it yourself. And in reality, like people with significant power never they never operate like that. In fact, you make yourself look ugly and abusive of your high position. Truly powerful people keep their hands clean. Only good things surround them, and the only announcements they make are of glorious achievements. There you go. You will often find it necessary, of course, to expend energy or to effect an evil but necessary action, but you must never appear to be this action's agent. Find a cat's paw, develop the arts of finding, using, and in time getting rid of these people when their cat's paw role has been fulfilled. So don't keep them around after you've put them through the fire. Get rid of them, allegedly. On the eve of an important river battle, the great 3rd century Chinese strategist Chuko Liang found himself falsely accused of secretly working for the other side. Oh shit. As proof of his loyalty, his commander ordered him to produce 100,000 arrows for the army within 3 days or be put to death. Instead of trying to manufacture the arrows, an impossible task, Liang took a dozen boats and had bundles of straw lashed to their sides. In the late afternoon, when mist always blanketed the river, he floated the boats toward the enemy camp. Fearing a trap from the wily Chuko Liang, the enemy did not attack the barely visible boats with boats of their own, but showered them with arrows from the bank. As Liang's boats inched closer, they redoubled the rain of arrows, which stuck in the thick straw. After several hours, the men hiding on board sailed the vessels quickly downstream, where Chuko Liang met them and collected his 100,000 arrows. Oh, that's funny. Chuko Liang would never do work that others could do for him. He was always thinking up tricks like this one. The key to planning such a strategy is the ability to think far ahead, to imagine ways in which other people can be baited into doing the job for you. So he was accused of being a traitor and ordered to produce 100,000 arrows in 3 days. And everybody knew, like, you can't just make 100,000 arrows in 3 days. Like, that's just impossible. But he just sent out a bunch of decoy boats full of straw and collected 100,000 arrows from the enemy, no less. So not only is that the 100,000 arrows your commanders want, that's also 100,000 less arrows the enemy has. Winner, winner. I got y'all to do all the work for me. But 100,000 arrows, just as you asked. Somebody needs to count this shit, so. An essential element in making this strategy work is to disguise your goal, shrouding it in mystery. Like the strange enemy boats appearing dimly in the mist, when your rivals cannot be sure what you are after, they will react in ways that often work against them in the long run. In fact, they will become your cat's paws. If you disguise your intentions, it is much easier to guide them into moves that accomplish exactly what you want done, but prefer not to do yourself. This may require planning several moves in advance, like a billiard ball that bounces off the sides a few times before heading into the right pocket. The early 20th century American con artist Yellow Kid Whale knew that no matter how skillfully he homed in on the perfect wealthy sucker, if he, a stranger, approached this man directly, the sucker might become suspicious. Sewell would often uh, Sewell would find someone the sucker already knew to serve as a cat's paw, someone lower on the totem pole who was himself an unlikely target and would therefore be less suspicious. Whale would interest this man in a scheme promising incredible wealth. Convinced the scheme was for real, the cat's paw would often suggest, without prompting, that his boss or wealthy friend should get involved. Having more cash to invest, this man would increase the size of the pot. Increase the size of the pot, making bigger bucks for all concerned. Sorry, y'all. Mm. Meta Moon Prime tastes like a sweet tart. I have no. Have I ever smoked Meta Moon Prime before? Does it taste like a sweet tart? Like, that sounds delicious. Sorry, y'all. This is a long one. The cat's paw would then involve the wealthy sucker who had been Whale's target all along, but who would not suspect a trap since it was his trusty subordinate who had roped him in. Devices like this are often the best way to approach a person of power. Use an associate or subordinate to hook you up with your primary target. The cat's paw establishes your credibility and shields you from the unsavory appearance of being too pushy in your courtship. It is always definitely best if you're going to try to approach someone. It would make an amazing gummies flavor. Hydration drink like a Gatorade or something of that nature. I've never heard of it before, so. But yeah, anyway, this if if you're trying to get close to somebody, but your goal is nefarious in nature, it is always best to find a guy who knows a guy to introduce you, because these powerful people are going to be, by their nature, suspicious. You don't get to be powerful without knowing who the fuck is around you. Monday. Welcome to Monday, Claire. I have no idea how much more there is still to go on this. A lot. Okay, continuing on. The easiest and most effective way to use the cat's paw is often to plant information with him that he will then spread to your primary target. False or planted information is a powerful tool, especially if spread by a dupe whom no one suspects. You will find it very easy to play innocent and disguise yourself as the source. There's a very large punch in right here from the Old Testament. I'm I'm gonna disappoint Squabob and not read it. Hey, if you didn't have to go to work this morning, it can be as many Saturdays as you want it to be. But if you think about it in the unfortunate reality of the world, every day is Tuesday, and Tuesday's the worst day of all. I don't think this works, but you go ahead and try, and you let me know if it does, because something has to be done to make vodka drinkable, other than adding just copious amounts of orange juice, which, in my opinion, always works. Yeah, a Wednesday gal sounds reasonable. Ah, the strategic therapist Dr. Milton H. Erickson would often encounter among his patients a married couple in which the wife wanted the therapy, but the husband absolutely refused it. And if you're married and you happen to be the husband, which I know my audience is like 99.99% women, and First Shot, which I think First Shot left a while ago. I haven't seen him in a while. Maybe somebody drowned him naked in the river. But for the most part, my audience is all female. But yeah. Gylomania likes cranberry juice. Cranberry juice in your vodka? Or just in general? I mean, I used to drink vodka cranberries when I went to the bar. Uh, for a minute, I was kind of stuck on that, and then I realized that whiskey neat was way better than vodka cranberry, and stopped drinking that shit because I'm not a woman. But if you like vodka cranberry, it's actually not a terrible idea. I will definitely try it. It will also probably clean my soda. I mean, if you use at least an 80 proof vodka, it should clean your soda stream nozzle quite nicely. Anything lower proof will gum it up. Anything higher than that's just fucking unnecessary, but we'll still keep it clean relatively well. Rather than wasting energy trying to deal with the man directly, Dr. Erickson would see the wife alone. This is a terrible idea. And as she talked, he would interject interpretations of the husband's behavior that he knew would rile the husband up if he heard them. Sure enough, the wife would tell her husband what the doctor had said. After a few weeks, the husband would be so furious he would insist on joining his wife in the sessions so he could set the doctor straight. Finally, you may well find cases in which deliberately offering yourself as the cat paw will ultimately gain you great power. This is the ruse of the perfect courtier. Its symbol is Sir Walter Raleigh, who once placed his own cloak on the muddy ground so that Queen Elizabeth, we're talking about the first one, not the shit one, would not sully her shoes. As the instrument that protects a master or peer from unpleasantness or danger, you gain immense respect, which sooner or later will pay dividends. And remember, if you can make your assistants subtle and gracious rather than boastful and burdensome, your recompense will be that much the more satisfying and powerful. Um, they don't make a Bacardi 101. They make a Wild Turkey 101. They make a Bacardi 151. Silence! I kill you. Uh, I'm here and I can't even knit. Well, the knitting club loves you regardless. That's okay. Just get used to the feeling of the knitting needles in your hand. The rest will come in time. But yes, keep them sharp. You're mixing up all the booze. You're not mixing all the booze. And if you are, you're not going to come out with Bacardi 101. You're going to come out with. And I'm not going to tell you where that goes. Long Island iced teas. And adding carbonation. That'll be funny. Fizzy booze. Although I think if fizzy liquor were a thing, they would have already put it in a can and started selling it to people like me who want to mix up their booze with fizz. Image. The cat's paw. It has long claws to grab things. It is soft and padded. Take hold of the cat and use its paw to pluck things out of the fire, to claw your enemy, to play with the mouse before devouring it. Sometimes you hurt the cat, but most often it doesn't feel a thing. And please don't hurt your cat. Like, authority. Do every pleasant, do everything pleasant yourself. Everything unpleasant through third parties. By adopting the first course, you win favor. By taking the second, you deflect ill will. Important affairs often require rewards and punishments. Let only the good come from you and the evil from others. Gracian. Sauced mouse, marinated mouse, pickled mouse. Don't use the cat's paw to eat the mouse. Hey, we have a cat in the knitting club. Thank you. It's a ninja cat, cat ninja, and she's not evil. Allegedly. I have no evidence of her being evil anyway. She's lovely. She hasn't even eaten a squab, and a squab is a baby pigeon, the natural enemy of a cat. Oh my goodness, y'all, we made it to the reversal. We're only 2 hours and 10 minutes in, and we fucking made it to the reversal. Are you all excited for the reversal of the law? She is the nicest among us. I don't know, Masi's pretty nice. And Cat Ninja, she she can be. Kitty got claws. Let's just say that. Like, as adorable as she is, Kitty got claws, and she can be not very nice sometimes. I know. I've been brutal enough with her. Like, it's happened. But anyway, we made it to the reversal. Yay! Let's all fucking celebrate, please. Ah, the cat's paw and the scapegoat must be used with extreme caution and delicacy. They are like screens that hide your own involvement in dirty work from the public. If at any moment the screen is lifted and you are seen as the manipulator, the puppet master, the whole dynamic turns around. Your hand will be seen everywhere, and you will be blamed for misfortunes you may have had nothing to do with. Once the truth is revealed, events will snowball beyond your control. In 1572, Queen Catherine de' Medici of France conspired to do away with Gaspard de Coligny, an admiral in the French Navy and a leading member of the Huguenot French Protestant community. Coligny was close to Catherine's son, Charles IX, and she feared his growing influence on the young king. So she arranged for a member of the Guise family, one of the most powerful royal clans in France, to assassinate him. The Guises. Secretly, however, Catherine had another plan. She wanted the Huguenots to blame the Guises for killing one of their leaders and to take revenge. With one blow, she would erase or injure two threatening rivals, Coligny and the Guise family. Yet both plans went awry. The assassin missed his target, only wounding Coligny. Knowing Catherine as his enemy, he strongly suspected it was she who had set up the attack on him, and he told the king so. Eventually, the failed assassination and the arguments that ensued from it set off a chain of events that led to a bloody civil war between Catholics and Protestants, culminating in the horrifying massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve, in which thousands of Protestants were killed. Please don't kill your Christians, y'all. Darth and I rank somewhere on the nice scale. Yeah, I rank at the mean end of the nice scale. Just I got one friend, cat ninja doesn't eat my tail. I got one cat friend. Yeah, fair. Yeah, don't kill your Christians. Don't kill your fellow Jews either. How about just not do bloody wars that kill everybody? Especially not your Christians or your Jews or your other people. I mean, just don't kill anybody. Juju is nicer than Mouse. Uh, that's debatable. I'm gonna. I almost put you on timeout for saying that. I almost had to time you out for this. I did not put you on timeout, but I thought about it. Yarn kept getting caught up. Oh, you're capping everybody's claws and stingers? Like, how will they ever protect us? It's funny that you think Juju is nicer than Mouse. I mean, I don't know. You both scare me sometimes. Like, wow, how are the women around me so violent in their tendencies? You, yeah, you do. And Bijou stings, and Kitty got claws. Like everybody around me armed but me, apparently. Mm. Come on, guys, we're almost there. If you have to use a cat's paw or a scapegoat in an action of great consequence, be very careful. Too much can go wrong. It is often wiser to use such dupes in more innocent endeavors, where mistakes or miscalculations will cause no serious harm. Finally, there are moments where it is advantageous to not disguise your involvement or responsibility, but rather to take the blame yourself for some mistake. If you have power and are secure in it, you should sometimes play the penitent. With a sorrowful look, you ask for forgiveness from those weaker than you. It is the ploy of the king who makes a show of his own sacrifices for the good of the people. Similarly, upon occasion, you may want to appear as the agent of punishment in order to instill fear and trembling in your opponents, or your subordinates, rather. Instead of the cat's paw, you should show your own mighty hand as a threatening gesture. Play such a card sparingly. If you play it too often, fear will turn into resentment and hatred. Before you know it, such emotions will spark a vigorous opposition that will someday bring you down. Get in the habit of using a cat's paw. It is far safer. Holy shit. Speaking of cat's paw and the whole conversation that we had about a cat, cheers. Perfect timing because we just made it all the way to the end of the longest of the laws, which didn't end up being the longest of the shows. There was just less to say and less to talk about, I guess. But it's pretty close to the longest of the shows, and definitely the longest law so far. But that was the never dirty your own hands. Keep your hands clean at all times. Unless you can't, but use that sparingly. Ninja has slept a whole night and we are still on this law. That's not even funny, Bijou. Like, this was so freaking long, and I had no damn idea when I first, like it was like 2 hours or, like, it was, yeah, it was like 5 or 6 o'clock ish when I was like, I should go see, like, what's up with this law. I have nothing better to do right now. So I went and I looked and I was like, holy shit, 50-minute audiobook. And then I went looked at all the ones I did before and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a while. Okay, well, at least it's a Monday night, not a Friday afternoon. But anyway, that was Keep Your Hands Clean, Law 26. Uh, for everyone who is in the replay crew who made it this far, if you have any questions or any thoughts on Law 26, make sure you leave something in the comment section for good old Darth Hideous to find so that we can talk about it. Hey, hi, Kitty Ninja. Uh, Wednesday, we have Law 27. Play on people's need to believe to create a cult-like following. Oh, my goodness. Well, that's going to be interesting. A cult-like following, huh? I don't know if I got this one, so this should be interesting. That'll be Wednesday's stream at 8 o'clock, same time. Uh, Anyone have anything else that needs addressing? I did 2 music streams this weekend on Rumble. If y'all didn't check those out, those are up. Saturdays was a lot of fun. Sundays was a different kind of moody vibe. I was pretty wasted for both of them though, so there's that fun. Um, thank everybody. I'd like to thank you all for coming. If you didn't smash the like button, I would appreciate it if you do. If you enjoyed this 48 Laws of Power, yeah, I did one Sunday at night. It was late, like 11 o'clock at night or something. So it was, I mean, it might have even been midnight. It might have even been Monday morning, but yeah, I had a redux on Sunday. Sunday smokeout and a Saturday sessions. Yeah, so that was fun. So if you're not subscribed to me on Rumble, I am Darth Hideous, the sneaker of onto Rumble streams, and I do sneak on the weekends. I do have a lot of love for Rumble. I'm thinking about sneaking onto Rumble some point during the week because I have a thing that popped up on my YouTube that I want to talk about. I might surprise y'all with that, but don't quote me on any of these things because I say I might do a lot of things and I don't often do them, but at least I've managed to commit to doing the 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m., 8 p.m., 12 p.m. Eastern Time for the 48 Laws of Power here on YouTube. The Rumble shows are just random whenever I feel like it. There's no scheduled time for that. I like to do them whenever I'm inclined, but now that we're back into Call of Duty League season, the timing's going to be weird. So be subscribed with notifications on over there so you won't miss a thing. And it was very good having all of you here for this. Law 26. I'll see all of you back here Wednesday, hopefully. Bring a friend. Law 27. We're going to create a cult. So if we're going to create a cult-like following, I need people to believe. So everybody find a friend and bring them along with you. Bring two friends. Let's build a whole damn cult here. Until then, I bid you all the most wonderful and safest of nights. Don't do anything out there that I wouldn't do. And I will catch you back here Wednesday at 8. Hideous out.